The bank manager's sneer could curdle milk. "Ma'am, I don't care who you think you are, your kind always tries to pull this stunt," he spat, loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. Dr. Amara Johnson, CEO of Horizon Tech, stood frozen, her manicured hand gripping the edge of the counter so tightly her knuckles paled. The words stung like a slap, but it was the smug certainty in his voice that lit a fire in her chest. She'd built a multimillion-dollar company from nothing. Yet here she was, in a bank she secretly owned, being denied her own money because of the color of her skin. The irony was so thick it could choke her. The lobby of First National Bank was a cathedral of wealth marble floors, chandeliers glinting like diamonds, and tellers in crisp uniforms moving with mechanical precision. But the air was heavy now, thick with the weight of every eye on Amara. Customers whispered, their murmurs a low hum, like bees sensing a storm. She straightened, her tailored blazer sharp as a blade, and locked eyes with the manager, a wiry man named Paul Grayson, whose name tag gleamed under the fluorescent lights. "I'm here to withdraw $500,000 from my account," Amara said, her voice steady but laced with steel. "The account you just claimed doesn't exist." Grayson leaned forward, his lips curling. "Look, lady, we don't just hand out $500,000 to anyone who walks in with a story. Your ID doesn't match any records. Maybe try the branch across town, they might be more your speed." The implication hung in the air, rancid and unmistakable. Amara's heart pounded, not from fear but from a rage so deep it felt ancestral. She'd faced this before, store clerks trailing her in boutiques, boardroom executives questioning her credentials despite her PhD, her success, her name in Forbes. But this was personal. This was her bank, her money, her power. And this man, with his cheap tie and cheaper prejudices, thought he could humiliate her in front of a crowd. She glanced at the wooden clipboard on the counter, where a teller had scribbled a note, "Justice in 5 minutes." It was meant for a customer complaint log, but to Amara it felt like a prophecy. She let a slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. "5 minutes?" she said softly, almost to herself. "That's all you have left." Grayson scoffed, adjusting his glasses. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she replied, her voice now loud enough to silence the lobby. "In 5 minutes, you'll be out of a job." The crowd gasped. A teller dropped a pen, the clatter echoing like a gunshot. Grayson's face reddened, his confidence cracking like thin ice. "You're delusional," he snapped, but his eyes darted nervously to the security guard by the door. Amara pulled out her phone, her fingers moving with the precision of a surgeon. She dialed a number, her gaze never leaving Grayson's. "Margaret," she said when the call connected. "I'm at First National, downtown branch. I need you to execute the override protocol. Now." Grayson laughed, a brittle sound. "What, you calling your lawyer? Good luck with that." But Amara wasn't listening. She was watching the clock on the wall, its second hand ticking like a countdown to judgment. She'd bought this bank 3 months ago through a silent acquisition, a move so discreet even the branch managers didn't know. Horizon Tech's portfolio was Vastech, real estate, finance, and First National was just a small piece of her empire. She'd come here today to test the system, to see if the rumors of discriminatory practices were true. She hadn't expected to be the target. The security guard, a burly man named Carl, stepped closer, his hand resting on his radio. "Ma'am, maybe you should step outside," he said, his tone cautious but firm. Amara raised an eyebrow. "Carl, is it? Stay where you are. You'll want to see this." The guard hesitated, glancing at Grayson, who was now sweating through his shirt. The lobby was a pressure cooker, every whisper and shuffle amplifying the tension. Customers clutched their deposit slips, torn between leaving and staying for the spectacle. A young woman in a hoodie filmed the scene on her phone, her eyes wide with anticipation. Amara's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. A single word from Margaret, her COO. Done. Time's up, Amara said, slipping the phone into her pocket. She turned to Grayson, her voice calm but razor-sharp. Check your system again. Account number 4839201. Dr. Amara Johnson. Grayson rolled his eyes but humored her, tapping at his computer with exaggerated impatience. His fingers froze. The screen glowed with her account details. $12.7 million, unrestricted, with a note in bold, primary shareholder. His jaw dropped, his face paling to the color of the marble floor. That's not possible, he stammered. Oh, it's very possible, Amara said, stepping closer. You see, I don't just bank here. I own this place. And you, Mr. Grayson, just made the biggest mistake of your career. The lobby erupted in murmurs, a wave of shock rolling through the crowd. The young woman with the phone gasped, her video now destined for viral fame. Grayson's hands trembled as he gripped the counter, his authority crumbling like ash. You can't, he started. But Amara cut him off. I can. And I am. You're fired. Effective immediately. Security, escort him out. Carl, the guard, blinked, then moved toward Grayson, who was now babbling protests. This is outrageous. You can't do this. I've worked here for 15 years. And in 15 seconds, you'll be out the door, Amara said, her voice unwavering. You denied me my money, insulted me, and disrespected every customer in this room who's ever been made to feel less than because of who they are. You're done. The crowd parted as Carl led Grayson toward the exit, his protests fading into a pathetic whine. The glass doors swung shut behind him, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. Amara turned to the tellers, who stood frozen behind the counter. Anyone else want to question my account? She asked, her tone daring them to speak. No one did. She took a deep breath, the fire in her chest cooling but not extinguishing. This wasn't just about her. It was about every person who'd been profiled, dismissed, or humiliated in places like this. She'd seen it her whole life. Her father turned away from loans. Her mother followed in stores. Her brother stopped by police for looking suspicious. Amara had clawed her way to the top, not just for herself but for them, for everyone who'd been told they didn't belong. She walked to the counter, picked up the wooden clipboard, and read the note again. Justice in 5 minutes. She smiled faintly, then set it down. The teller who'd written it, a young black woman named Tasha, met her eyes with a mix of awe and gratitude. Dr. Johnson, Tasha said quietly. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You don't need to apologize, Amara said. But you do need to help me fix this place. Starting now. Tasha nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. The other tellers exchanged glances, some ashamed, others inspired. The customers began to clap, a slow ripple that grew into a wave. Amara didn't acknowledge it. She wasn't here for applause. She was here for change. As she walked toward the manager's office to begin restructuring the branch, her phone buzzed again. A text from Margaret. Boards behind you. Clean house. Amara's lips curved into a determined smile. This was just the beginning. The next hour was a whirlwind. Amara sat at Grayson's former desk, reviewing employee records and customer complaints. The branch had a history of issues denied withdrawals, flagged accounts, and subtle but consistent bias against non-white customers. She called in the regional director, a nervous man named Richard who arrived sweating and apologetic. Dr. Johnson, I had no idea this was happening, he said, wringing his hands. You should have. she replied, her tone icy. Ignorance isn't an excuse. It's a failure. Richard nodded, promising reforms. Amara didn't trust promises. She'd seen too many broken ones. Instead, she outlined a plan. Mandatory bias training, a new oversight committee, and a public apology to every customer wronged by the branch. Richard scribbled notes, his pen shaking. As she worked, Tasha knocked on the door, holding a tablet. Dr. Johnson, that video from the lobbyists gone viral. Over 1 million views already. Amara leaned back in her chair, unsurprised. Good. Let it spread. People need to see this. But the attention brought complications. By noon, reporters were outside, their cameras flashing through the glass walls. Social media was ablaze with hashtags. Justice in 5 minutes, bank bias, Amara Johnson. Some praised her as a hero. Others called her a publicity hound. She ignored both. Her focus was the bank, the system, the rot she'd uncovered. She called a staff meeting, gathering every employee in the break room. They sat in uneasy silence, some avoiding her gaze, others staring with open admiration. I'm not here to tear you down, Amara began, her voice steady. I'm here to build something better. But that starts with accountability. If you've ever treated a customer differently because of their race, their accent, their clothes, own it. Fix it. Because I will find out, and I won't hesitate to do what I did to Grayson. A few heads nodded. Tasha raised her hand. Dr. Johnson, I've seen things, hear things I didn't speak up about. I want to help change that. Amara nodded. You're hired as my liaison. Start documenting every incident. We're cleaning house, and you're going to help me. The meeting ended with a mix of relief and fear. Amara knew change wouldn't come easily. Bias was a weed, deep-rooted and stubborn. But she had the tools to uproot it: money, power, and a will forged in decades of fighting. By evening, the bank was quieter, the reporters gone. Amara stood alone in the lobby, the setting sun casting long shadows across the marble. She thought of her parents, who'd worked 2 jobs each to send her to college. She thought of her brother, still scarred from profiling. She thought of every person who'd walked into this bank and left feeling small. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Margaret. You're trending worldwide. Ready for the fallout? Amara typed back. Let it come. I'm ready. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for a world where no one had to prove they belonged. And she'd keep fighting, one bank, one manager, one system at a time. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the bank's lobby felt like a battlefield after the smoke cleared. Amara Johnson stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her reflection sharp against the glass. The viral video had turned her into a symbol overnight, but symbols carried weight, and she felt it pressing on her shoulders. She wasn't naive. Change didn't come from one fired manager or one trending hashtag. The real work was just beginning, and it would be messy. Her phone vibrated relentlessly, notifications piling up like unpaid bills, messages from allies, threats from trolls, and interview requests from every major network. She silenced it and turned to Tasha, who was sorting through customer complaint files at a nearby desk. Anything stand out? Amara asked. Tasha hesitated, then slid a folder across the table. This one's bad. A single mother, Latina, denied a loan last month despite perfect credit. Grayson's signature is on the rejection. Amara's jaw tightened. She opened the folder, scanning the details. Maria Alvarez, 34, small business owner. The rejection cited insufficient documentation, but the attached paperwork was flawless. Get her on the phone, Amara said. Tomorrow morning. Tasha nodded, her fingers already typing. Amara admired her young, sharp, and unafraid to speak up now that the fear of Grayson's retaliation was gone. Tasha reminded Amara of herself at that age, before the world taught her how steep the climb would be. The next morning, the bank opened under a microscope. Reporters camped outside, their vans clogging the street. Customers arrived in droves, some to gawk, others to test the new regime. Amara had spent the night in the manager's office, drafting a restructuring plan. She'd promoted Tasha to interim branch supervisor and tasked Richard, the regional director, with auditing every transaction from the past year. Any hint of bias would trigger an investigation. Maria Alvarez arrived at 10 a.m., her posture wary but proud. She wore a simple dress, her hair pulled back, and carried a folder of her own. Amara met her in a private office, away from the cameras. "Ms. Alvarez," Amara began, "I owe you an apology. This bank failed you." Maria's eyes widened. "You're her." "From the video." Amara nodded. "And I'm the one fixing this place. Tell me what happened." Maria's story spilled out a dream to expand her catering business, a loan application prepared with care, and Grayson's curt dismissal. "He said I didn't fit the profile for their clients," Maria said, her voice trembling. "I knew what he meant." Amara's fingers curled into fists. "You're getting that loan today, and we're waiving the fees as compensation. If you're willing, I'd like you to speak publicly about this. People need to know." Maria hesitated, then nodded. "For my daughter, so she doesn't face this one day." By noon, Amara and Maria stood outside the bank, facing a sea of microphones. Amara spoke first, her voice clear and unyielding. "First National has a history of systemic bias. I'm here to dismantle it. Ms. Alvarez is one of many who've been wronged, and we're making it right starting now." Maria's statement was brief but powerful, her voice cracking as she spoke of her daughter's future. The crowd applauded, but Amara saw the skeptics' reporters scribbling, onlookers whispering. Change was a performance to some, a headline to others. She didn't care. This was for Maria, for Tasha, for every person who'd been made to feel invisible. The backlash hit that afternoon. A conservative talk show host called Amara a race-baiting opportunist, claiming she'd staged the confrontation for clout. Online, trolls flooded her mentions with slurs and threats. A rival bank issued a statement, subtly accusing her of destabilizing the industry. Even some allies questioned her methods. Firing Grayson was satisfying. But was it enough? Amara ignored the noise, focusing on the branch. She met with every employee, one-on-one, probing for complicity or courage. Most were eager to adapt, but a few resisted, their defensiveness betraying their bias. She let two more go, a teller who'd flagged accounts based on gut feelings, and a loan officer with a pattern of rejecting minority applicants. Each firing was a message. No one was untouchable. By the third day, the branch was transforming. New policies banned subjective account flags, and every denial required documented justification. Tasha trained the staff on bias recognition, her confidence growing with each session. Customers noticed the shift: fewer glares, faster service, a warmth that hadn't been there before. But the outside world wasn't as tidy. A protest formed across the street, a mix of Grayson's supporters and anti-corporate activists. They waved signs, "Justice for Paul," and "Banks exploit everyone." Amara watched from the lobby, her stomach twisting. Grayson had become a martyr to some, a symbol of reverse discrimination. The irony was bitter. She fought for fairness. Yet here she was, vilified by both sides. Her phone buzzed with a text from her brother, Jamal. "You okay? This is getting ugly." She typed back, "I've handled worse. Stay safe." Jamal had always been her anchor, the one who reminded her why she fought. He'd faced his own battles, stopped by police, passed over for promotions. His scars fueled her resolve. That evening, Amara received an unexpected visitor. Grayson's wife, Ellen. She was a slight woman, her eyes red from crying. "I'm not here to defend him," Ellen said, her voice shaking. "But he's not a monster. He's lost. Can you give him a chance?" Amara leaned back in her chair, studying Ellen. "Your husband humiliated me in front of a crowd. He denied a mother alone because of her heritage. Why should I help him?"
Ellen swallowed.
"He's all I have. He's broken, but he can change." Amara felt a pang of empathy, but it didn't soften her. Change starts with accountability. If he wants redemption, he needs to earn it somewhere else. Ellen left quietly, her shoulders slumped. Amara stared at the door, wondering if she'd been too harsh. But she couldn't afford to waver. The stakes were too high, the wounds too deep. The next morning, a new crisis erupted. A leaked email from a senior executive at First National's corporate office criticized Amara's reckless overhaul, warning of financial losses. The email went viral, sparking a boycott from progressive groups and a surge in support from others. The bank's stock dipped, and the board called an emergency meeting. Amara faced the board via video call, their faces a mosaic of skepticism and fear. "Dr. Johnson," the chairman began, "your actions are bold, but they're costing us. We need stability, not headlines." Amara didn't flinch. "Stability built on injustice is a lie. You hired me to grow this bank, and I am making it a place people trust. If you want profits, back me. If you want excuses, fire me." The room fell silent. Margaret, her COO, texted her, "You're insane." And brilliant. After a tense debate, the board agreed to support her, but the chairman's warning lingered, "Don't push too far." Amara pushed anyway. She launched a community outreach program, inviting local leaders to audit the bank's practices. She partnered with nonprofits to offer financial literacy workshops, targeting underserved neighborhoods. Maria's catering business received its loan, and her story became a campaign centerpiece, drawing new customers. But the victories were fragile. A week later, Amara received an anonymous letter, slipped under the bank's door. "You can't fix what's broken. Watch your back." The words chilled her, but she didn't report it. She'd faced threats before. Her success had always come with a target on her back. Instead, she doubled down. She hired a diversity consultant to overhaul hiring practices and created a scholarship fund for minority students pursuing finance careers. Tasha proposed a mural for the lobby, depicting the community's resilience. Amara approved it, imagining her parents' faces in the design. The mural's unveiling was a turning point. Hundreds gathered, their faces reflecting every hue and history of the city. Maria spoke, her daughter clinging to her side. Tasha cut the ribbon, her smile radiant. Amara stood in the background, letting others shine. The crowd cheered, but she saw the protesters across the street, their signs smaller but still there. That night, alone in her office, Amara watched the viral video again. Her own voice echoed, 5 minutes. That's all you have left. She'd meant it for Grayson, but it felt bigger now, a promise to herself, to her community, to a world that needed shaking. She wasn't naive enough to think she'd fixed racism or healed the bank's wounds, but she'd cracked the foundation, and that was a start. The next day, she found a new note on the wooden clipboard in the lobby, written in Tasha's hand, "Keep fighting." Amara smiled, tucking it into her pocket. The fight wasn't over, it never would be. But she was ready for the long haul, armed with her anger, her vision, and the people who believed in her. She stepped outside, the morning sun warm on her face. The protesters were gone, replaced by a line of customers stretching around the block. Some came for loans, others for hope. Amara greeted each one, her handshake a vow. No one would be turned away. The story of First National spread, sparking debates across the country. Was Amara a hero or a disruptor? Was justice served, or was Grayson a scapegoat? The questions hung in the air, unanswered but vital. They forced people to confront their own biases, their own silences. What do you think? Where does justice lie in this clash of power and prejudice? Share your thoughts because the conversation starts with us.